Napakatamis ng tubig at naiinom, bagaman lumulunod sa alak at serbesa at pumapatay sa apoy. Nagiging singaw ito kapag pinainitan, kapag nalikalig, nagiging karagatan na minsan ang pumuksa sa sangkatauhan.
Rizal first homecoming in the Philippines. After 5 years of memorable sojourn in Europe, Rizal returned to the Philippines in August 1887. Rizal was warned by Preciano and other relatives not to return home, yet he did not heed their warning. He was determined to return to the following reasons: to operate out his mother's eye, to serve his people who had long been expressed by Spanish tyrants, to find out himself how Danali and his other writings were affecting Filipinos and Spaniards in the Philippines, and lastly, to inquire while Leonardo Rivera remained silent. One day, Rizal received a letter from Governor General Emilio Terrero requesting him to go to Malacanang Palace. Rizal went to Malacanang. He was informed by the Governor General of the charges and explained that the merely exposed the truth. Because of his forced leave, Rizal traveled to foreign countries. On February 8, 1888, he arrived in Hong Kong, where he was welcomed by Filipino residents, including Jose Marie Basa. During his 2 weeks visit in Hong Kong, Rizal studied the Chinese life. On February 28, 1888, he arrived in Japan, where he met a Japanese girl, fell in love with her. She was Shiko Yusui, whom Rizal affectionately called C. On April 28, 1888, he arrived in the United States, where all passengers, including Rizal, were not allowed to land, and other ships was placed under quarantine on the grounds that it came from the Far East, where cholera epidemic were raging. On May 24, 1888, he arrived in London, where he stayed as a guest of Dr. Antonio Rehador, an exile and a practicing lawyer. On January 28, 1890, he arrived in Brussels, wherein Rizal became busy writing his second novel, which was Documentation of Danali. Aside from his hectic schedule, Rizal wrote articles for La Solidaridad and letters to his family and friends. He also received news from Juan Luna and Valentin Ventura that many Filipinos in Spain were involved in gambling. He wrote Marcelo H. del Pilar on May 28, 1980 to remind the Filipinos in Madrid not to gamble but to help work for their fatherland's freedom. On August 1890, Rizal arrived in Madrid, where he tried an illegal means to seek justice for his family and Nakalamba, but they were all known to avail. From Madrid, he went back to Brussels, where he became busy revising and polishing the manuscript of El Filibusterismo. He went to Gent, where he searched for a printer for his novel. At least in September 1889, El Filibusterismo came off the press. Rizal was a very happy man, sent 2 copies to Hong Kong, one for Basa and the other for Sixto Lopez. The book was dedicated to 3 Filipino priests who were executed in the Philippines. After the publication of El Filibusterismo, Rizal left for Hong Kong, where he lived from November 1891 to June 1892. He lived in Europe because life was unbearable and he really wanted to see his family and his country.
Para sa akin, kung bakit nga ba isinulat ni Jose Rizal ang nobelang Noli Me Tangere. So, isinulat ni Jose Rizal ang Noli Me Tangere upang maipapabahagi sa bawat Pilipino kung ano yung mga magagandang pangyayari noong kapanahunan nila at kung ano yung mga katotohanan na nangyayari sa kapanahunan nila. At isa rin itong nakakapagbigay inspirasyon sa bawat Pilipino kung gaano kaganda ang mabuhay na isang Pilipino.
Kaya isinulat ni Rizal ang No Le Metangere upang may pamulat at maipakita sa mga Pilipino ang mga pang-aabusong ginawa ng mga pare noon sa panahon ng Kastila.
In late October, Don Santiago de los Santos, who is known as Captain Tiago, who throws a large party dinner in Manila. Turning their attention to the door, the dinner guests behold Captain Tiago and a young man named Don Crisostomo Ibarra. Moving throughout the party, Ibarra finds that subset of guests either awkwardly ignored him or warmly embraced him. The two friars, Father Sibayla and Father Damaso, verbally spar with one another for the seat at the head of the table. The guests turned their attention to Ibarra, asking his studies in Europe. At Ibarra walked home that night. The lieutenant catch up to see him. His name is Senor Guevara, and he explains the circumstances of Don Rafael's death. Because Ibarra's father was the richest man in the province and he had many enemies. Captain General and hiring a lawyer, but unfortunately the government was too corrupt to afford any assistance, and by the time Guevara successfully cleared Don Rafael's name, he had died in his cell. Ibarra sees an image of his father dying in a jail cell, while Ibarra spills wine on flowers and laughs unencumbered by grief. Rizal devotes this chapter to describing Captain Tiago, a man of Filipino descent who is considered one of the region's richest property owners. He is an influential planter in San Diego, an upwardly mobile town where Tiago spends 2 months per year. Regarding his strong ties to the government, Rizal notes that Tiago is always ready to obey the army's lower-ranking officers. Ibarra told Don Rafael that he loved Maria Clara and thus didn't go to Europe. To you, the future opens its door. To me, it's closes them. You're being born, mine lies dying. His father told him, and yet you cry and cannot figure out how to sacrifice today for a useful tomorrow for you and your country. Ibarra goes pale, telling her he must go because she has made him to forget his responsibilities. Riding in a coach on the way to San Diego, Ibarra noticed the change in streets that used to be unpaved and full of potholes which prisoners used to feel while receiving lashes from whip as people rushed by coaches without noticing. Father Damaso pulls up to Captain Tiago's home in his Victoria, pausing Aunt Isabel and Maria Clara on his way up the steps. They tell him that they are going to convent to collect Maria Clara's belongings, and he said, "Aha, aha, we'll see who wins out, we'll see." A statement they dismiss before taking their leave. Meanwhile, Father Sibayla goes to visit a very old priest who remained unnamed. The priest tells Sibayla that he is dying and he's decided to let it happen rather than undergoing surgery. Rizal turned his attention to Captain General, who hears from somebody present at the dinner party that Father Damaso spoke unfavorably about him. Ibarra family history is intertwined that the village of San Diego. Don Rafael inherited his father's farm and quickly gained respect from his workers as the town of San Diego grew into what it is today. San Diego is not run by the figures one might expect. Captain Tiago, for his instance, is influential but doesn't have control. To undermine the friar, the ensign imposes a curfew that interferes with the citizens' ability to attend church services at the appropriate times. In San Diego's Catholic Cemetery, men are digging a grave. One complains to the others who is more experienced grave digger. Ibarra arrives at the graveyard and interrogates the grave digger, who tells him that he burned a cross that Ibarra's servant had set up in the graveyard. The old man who asked the grave digger about the skull is now wanders the streets. His name is Tasio, and the townspeople either called him a madman or a philosopher depending on their opinion of him and his strange ways.
The two Sacritanzo Tasio Tok were siblings Luspin and Basilio. The two were ringing the bell in the tower amid the warning of a storm, but they weren't able to ring the bell properly. The two wanted to return home as Tasio said that their mother Sisa prepared a wonderful dinner for them. However, they continued to work in the church. Crispin was framed for stealing. He was angry for being framed and prayed that the friars would get sick. They were paid 2 ounces of 2 pesos monthly. They were unable to pay the things and was framed for stealing. Crispin said that he should have stolen for real to pay the things he allegedly stole. The head sacristan arrived and reprimanded them for their failure to ring the bell. He told the siblings that they will not leave until 10 in the evening. Basilio was about to flee to head, but to drag the basement to be locked in the darkness. Basilio planned to descend to the tower. When the rain stopped, he grabbed a rope and descended down. He found the place his brother was locked in, but the door was shut tight. Is the mother of the sacristan siblings, Crispin and Basilio. They live in a small house outside the town. They were poor. Sisa married a lazy, irresponsible, gambling addict. The husband would oftentimes be brutally harsh to Sisa. She's martyr, yet no one noticed her suffering from her husband, who would go to church often. One night, she married a special dinner as Taseo the sage said these rarely happen in their lives. She prepared dried fish and tomato for Crispin and pork tapa and duck thigh for Basilio. Unfortunately, her children were unable to return home early to be with Sisa. They will never eat their dinner as her husband finished everything without consideration. Saddened, she prepared another dried fish for the children who are expected to arrive. However, it's been late at night and they were unable to return home. She stood up late at the night until Basilio came and called to her. Basilio arrived home with an injury in the head. He got from a Guardia Civil who chased him and tried to take him and imprison him in the cardinal. He told his mother Sisa about what happened and how Crispin ended up locked inside the church. He later told that Crispin was framed for stealing 2 ounces. Sisa was saddened and promised her older son that no one will know about what happened to Basilio. His father came home, which made Basilio lose appetite as he could not bear to think about the abuse his mother endured. He wishes for his father to disappear, but Sisa wanted the family to be together. Tired, Basilio went to bed and dreamed of Crispin facing torture by the friar. Sisa woke Basilio up for him to go back to the church. Basilio, however, doesn't want to go back and said that he will be a shepherd in Ibarra's field. When he grows up, he will let Crispin learn under the sage Tasio. The day sparks with up rumors that Friar Salve is ill. It is All Souls Day and the streets are filled with people talking about plenary, indulgence, and all other religious practices and beliefs relating to the holiday. Sisa makes her way to the convent to fetch her son Crispin. She is told that the boy is not there, that the little thief had stolen even more from them, and then made run for it. Sisa breaks down in tears. The teacher in the town of San Diego accompanies Ibarra to the place where Don Rafael's body was found, and there Ibarra pays respect to the memory of his father. The school teacher mentions to Crisostomo the great help the late Don Rafael gave in limiting children's education in San Diego. The story moves Ibarra, and so he decides to build a school for the kids. This, he says, will do great honor and justice to the memory of his father. From the riverside, Ibarra makes his way to the town hall. There people are deciding on the type of the celebrations that must be held and organized during the town feast. the older citizens are inclined to having a grand and cheerful celebration. The youth, with the leadership of Don Filippo, are against it. Caesar runs all the way home. She wants desperately to save and protect her sons from the danger that she feels is coming. She comes across the civil guards and finds out that Crispin was nowhere to be found, and that Basilio had escaped. The guards command Caesar to bring out the friar's money, which his sons had stolen. When she cannot produce it, they arrest her. Caesar nearly dies of shame from the piercing stares of the people as she is dragged across town. The alferez eventually releases her, and she goes searching for her lost sons. Still no signs of them. Caesar becomes insane.
For the next 3 days, the town prepares for the fiesta. Maria Clara arrives with Aunt Isabel, and the townspeople notice a profound difference in Father Salve, who seems disrupted during his sermons and becomes thinner. And as for Ibarra, nobody knows why he's absent, and some speculate that he has been imprisoned for having forced Father Salve to his knees on All Saints' Day. These suspicions are dispelled though when he arrives in front of Maria Clara's house in San Diego and warmly greets Father Salve, who is also on his way to pay the young woman a visit. In an intimate conversation, Ibarra and Maria Clara plan an outing with friends the next day. Maria Clara pleads Ibarra not to let Father Salve come because he's always watching her with sad and sunken eyes that unnerves her. Ibarra and Maria Clara go on the planned outing the next morning, taking with them Maria Clara's friends Sinang, Victoria, Iday, Nenang, and their mothers, and several friends of Ibarra. They eventually discover though that there's a crocodile stuck in the muck beneath the boat. The younger boatman jumps into the water, lassoing the crocodile and bringing it above the surface level. As the crocodile thrashes about, it drags the boatman back into the water. Ibarra quickly dives in to save the man, driving his knife into the crocodile's tender body. Father Salve rushes to his morning mass and other religious duties in order to meet up with Maria Clara and her friends. When he arrives, he walks through the woods and hears Maria Clara and several other girls talking about him, saying that he creepily follows her everywhere she goes. On the next day, Ibarra pays a visit to Old Tasio and finds him writing in hieroglyphs, which the old man says he does so that nobody will understand his idea. Ibarra turns his attention to his plans to reform San Diego, telling Tasio that he intends to build a new school and asking for his advice. But the old Tasio tells Ibarra not to come to him for advice anymore. On the night before the fiesta, the town prepares itself. One of the more notable preparations involves the school, which is under construction and shaping up to be a magnificent building. As the town prepares for the fiesta, Captain Tiago also gears up for the celebration. He speaks with Ibarra, or his future son-in-law, about the school's name, urging the young man to call it the St. Francis School instead of the School of Primary Instruction, the name on which Ibarra has already settled. Later, as Maria Clara and her friends walk through town at dusk, they see a leper collecting donations from people by putting a basket down, retreating until they fill it up with money or trinkets, and retrieving it when they're gone. Moved by the scene, Maria Clara steps forward and gives the leper a reliquary or a container for holy relics, and the leper bows to the ground, putting his finger in her footprints to show his gratitude. Rizal gives excerpts of several letters describing the events of the festival, which include description of the music, the priest in attendance, the theater spectacle, the feast, and the sermons. In a letter from Maria Clara to Ibarra, she tells her lover that she misses seeing him because he has apparently been sick for the last couple of days, and says that Father Damaso has been keeping her company in the meantime.
It is the eve of the fiesta, and the town is filled with the music, gaiety, and bright ornament. The busiest spot is a lot close to Ibarra's house, where Nor Juan, the foreman of Ibarra's schoolhouse, is intent on giving orders for the work at hand. In the twilight, wishing Ibarra to get along with the Padre Damaso, Capitan Tiago invites him to dine at his house, where the friar will also be dining. Ibarra politely declines. Ibarra, Maria Clara, and her friends go out for a walk. In the plaza, they see a blind leper. Sisa shows up and touches the leper. A soldier drags Sisa away for disturbing the peace. Maria Clara, feeling sad, decides to head home. Capitan Martin narrates how Capitan Tiago's winning at cards drives Capitan Joaquin nearly broke, and how Padre Damaso, frustrated by his losses, bashed a lamp. He shares that the consul has lost in cockfighting and that Carlos, the Chinaman, is making a fortune with Leampo. It is the third and last day of the fiesta. The people of San Diego put on their best clothes and proceed to the church. All the while, bright banners, the sound of firecrackers, and lively band music fill the surroundings. In the church, a great crowd of the faithful fill the church and jostle for air and space. Maria Clara, by order of the curate, is given her own space near the altar. Padre Damaso delivers the first half of his sermon in Spanish, extolling the virtues of San Diego in such high-sounding words and in such a bombastic and circuitous manner that the Indians are doubly unable to understand anything. The mistake is pronouncement as pertaining to their earthly affairs. Damaso then improvises the second part of his sermon in Tagalog and castigates his listeners in general terms, raging against the people's lack of reverence of religion and priest. He takes an indirect swipe at Ibarra by talking of unconfessed sinners dying in prison, an unnamed reference to Ibarra's father, and Puff Up half-breeds an allusion to Ibarra. Despite the recent death at the site, the celebratory meals proceeds as planned. Capitan Tiago leaves early as he received a telegram informing him that the Captain General will be arriving at his house. The friars feels light that the official will not be staying at the convento. The most disheartening observation comes from the parent of one of the schools with big pupils. He is certain that there would no longer be a school, for the priest had called Ibarra's filibustero, whose fate is death.
Ibarra is excommunicated as punishment for his cruel and shameful treatment of Friar Damaso. Maria Clara breaks down in tears and Captain Tiago visits her in the convent. There, Damaso makes clear to Tiago that the planned marriage between Ibarra and Maria Clara is to be nullified. The Captain General arrives. He calls for Maria Clara, who stays in solitude inside her room. The first person the Captain General wishes to see is Ibarra. However, since the youth is still to be called upon, His Excellency instead addresses the mother of the youth, who had gone into a fist fight with Friar Damaso the day before he had insulted the sermon. When the general asks where Damaso is, he is told that the friar is bedridden in the convent. His Excellency then speaks with Maria Clara. He thanks her for having stopped Ibarra from killing the dumb priest, and asks her to name the reward she would wish to receive for such a noble act. Ibarra arrives shortly and confers with the Captain General. They exchange opinions and ideas, and the general grows very fond of the youth. His Excellency promises to talk with the Archbishop regarding Ibarra's case so that the latter's state of excommunication may be lifted. When the general speaks with Captain Tiago, he inquires about Ibarra's marriage with Maria Clara and offers to be godfather during the wedding ceremony. The captain walks together with the mayor, Captain Tiago, and Crisostomo Ibarra. They watch the procession from the captain's terrace. When the statue of Virgin Mary passes by Tiago's house, Maria Clara sings Ave Maria in a melody so sad that would cause one to ponder upon the cause of such melancholy. In the house of the alferez, all the windows are closed. Inside, servants and workers alike get the ominous feeling that the Doña Consolacion is again conjuring up an evil plan of some sort. Sisa, who was taken into custody for creating social unrest, has been in the barracks for 2 days now. She hears Maria Clara mournful song and sings a sad ballad herself. Then the civil guards stay silent listening. Doña Consolacion hears the woman and forces the latter to sing and dance for her own amusement. The alferez arrives shortly and commands his servant to clothe Sisa, feed her, give her a suitable bed for the night, and then bring her to Ibarra the following day. All the people head towards the town plaza to witness the play. When the show starts, the friars are already in their designated seats. Friar Salve, however, does not see what is happening on stage. His full attention is focused on Maria Clara. After the first half of the play, Ibarra arrives. Friar Salve orders Don Filippo to prohibit Ibarra from watching the play since the youth has been excommunicated and his presence would corrupt the celebration. When Don Filippo refuses to follow the priest's orders, Salve motions to his companions and leaves. While Ibarra passes time in his laboratory, Ilias arrives with the news of Maria Clara's illness. The lady had apparently caught fever. Ibarra asked Ilias how the latter was able to stop the riot the night before. Shortly after Ilias leaves, Ibarra heads toward Captain Tiago's house to visit Maria Clara. Along the way, he comes across Lucas, the brother of the yellowish man who had attempted to kill Ibarra, who asked him for money for his grieving family. Ibarra, aggravated, tells the man to return in the afternoon. Maria Clara is ill. Then, Doña Victorina and her husband arrive at Captain Tiago's house. Don Tiburcio de Espadana is there on account of the girl whom he had agreed to treat after Tiago requested for his services. Tiburcio, or Don Tiburcio de Espadana, is a Spaniard who pretends to be a doctor. Together with the couple is a young Spanish gentleman, Linnaeus.
After Don Tiburcio de Espadana checks on Maria Clara and gives her a prescription, Prior Damaso arrives and talks with her. The priest introduced to Linares and conjures up a plan to arrange the youth marriage to Maria Clara. Meanwhile, Lucas is formulating a plan to harm Ibarra. Prior Salve also has a plan of his own. Prior Salve is alone with Maria Clara for the latter's confession. The girl begins to feel well after a few hours. And according to Doña Victorina, it was all because of Don Tiburcio's skill and expertise. Prior Salve, on the other hand, says that it was all because of her confession. When the prior leaves Maria Clara's room, he appears rather pale and is covered a perspiration, just like Ilias had told to Ibarra. He leaves for Batangas in search of Captain Pablo. He finds the man weak and wounded in the middle of a forest. Ilias persuades Pablo to go with him and live a free life, but the latter refuses, saying that he cannot turn his back from the life he has made for himself, that of a man hunted but still fighting for his principles and his honor. It is Sunday and virtually everyone is in the cockpit. Two brothers, Tarcelo and Bruno, are among the audience. They wish to place their bets and join the fun, but they have no money with them. Lucas approaches the two boys and gives them cash, reminding them of the vengeance they have to exact upon those who caused the death of their beloved father, and inviting them to join him in a rebellion that he is planning to start. The boys refuse. Later on, the brothers see Lucas talking to Pedro, the father of Basilio and Crispin. Eventually, Tarcelo and his brother decided to join Lucas in his undertaking. According to Lucas, the rebellion is Ibarra's idea. The boys leave after getting 30 pesos from the man, agreeing to meet at the cemetery at 8 in the evening. While walking with her husband, Doña Victorina flashes her eccentric clothes about town. The De Espendañas pass by the house of the alferez. Doña Consolacion, the alferez wife, mocked Victorina, and this ends in a heated argument. To defend her honor, Victorina prods Linares to challenge the alferez to a duel. Ibarra goes to the seaside where he had agreed to meet with Ilias. Ilias tells him of the purpose of the meeting, to address the concerns and needs of those who are hunted and persecuted. He asks Ibarra to find a way to diminish the power of the priors and the civil guards. Ibarra refuses. According to him, the priors and the civil guards are necessary evils. The Archbishop grants pardon to Ibarra and removes the penalty of excommunication. Crisostomo feels a pang of jealousy when he sees Maria Clara with Linares. He proceeds to visit his schoolhouse, which is still under construction. The architect updates him on the recent progress of the building. Ibarra spots Elias helping out in the construction and requests to see the full list of workers. The architect leaves and Ibarra approaches Elias. Elias asks if he could speak with him later in the afternoon by the river, and Ibarras agree. Elias walks away and Nol Juan approaches Ibarra, handing over to him the list of workers. Elias' name is not there.
Elias' grandfather was charged, punished, and drugged by a horse. The woman escaped from the authorities, moved to a distant province, and gave birth to twins, Elias and Concordia. Like their ancestor, Concordia also committed suicide. Padre Salvi came to Captain Tiago's house, announced the Archbishop's decision to annul Ibarra's excommunication, and also said that Damaso was the only obstacle to forgiving Ibarra. On a cold night, 3 shadows conversed under the tomb door. 2 shadows were left on the door, and the identities of the 2 were revealed because of the light: Elias and Lucas. People individually guess what and where the light comes from. Don Filippo and Filippo Tasio had another conversation. Don had already announced that the mayor had accepted his resignation. Don asked Tasio if he wanted medicine because he was weak, but he did not need the medicine because who were left behind would need the medicine more. The priest allegedly found out about the planned strike and attack on the barracks because of a woman confessed to him. Elias found out that the planned uprising would definitely be Ibarra and would be blamed for the aggression movement. They burned Ibarra's books and writings that can be used as evidence against him. On the other hand, Padre Salvi walked around the hall waiting for Ibarra. Maria and her friends are restless. When it was 8 o'clock, a gun suddenly exploded outside. People are just hiding in their homes, and you do not even see anyone on the streets. There are rumors that Ibarra tried to save his fiancée so that her marriage to Linares would not continue, and it proved to be true, so the civilians set fire to the young man's house. The Corps accused Ibarra of being the cause of the attack in the town. What they didn't know was that Ibarra only did that because he wanted to avenge his late father for being killed by the civilians. Without getting the civil information from Tarsilo, they dug it into a well. With the stomach upside down, they also repeatedly did this to Tarsilo until he died.
The ensign marches the prisoner, including Ibarra, into the streets. The townspeople insult Ibarra, calling him a heretic and hurling stones at him. Father Salvi pretends to be sick and closes himself away in the parish house. The main corporation celebrates Friar Salvi's triumphant discovery of the rebellion. The people in the government and the church hope for a big promotion of their offices because of the successful efforts to put a stop to the uprising. The friars blamed it all in the Jesuits, who they claimed had messed with the minds of the youth. Captain Tino is restless and worried that he might also be arrested simply for being Ibarra's acquaintance. Word spreads around Manila that all the praises the rebels about Ibarra's schoolhouse are false. It is actually a place for the rebels, a tower of rebellion. Captain Tiago is the only wealthy man who isn't in jail. Captain Tino is free, but is terribly ill and does not want to go out of the house. Doña Victoria, Don Tiburcio, and Linares arrive at the Captain Tiago's house. Victorina and Tiago agree that Linares and Maria Clara wed the soonest time possible, and Tiago immediately attended to the wedding preparation the following day. Civil guards stood after Ibarra and Elias on the lake in hot pursuit. Elias jumped off the boat to mislead the men, saving Ibarra's life. Many gifts are offered for Maria Clara's wedding. To Linares, Friar Damaso arrives cheerful. He notices, however, that the maiden is rather pale and distraught. Maria Clara cries on his shoulder and asks him to tell the captain, Tiago, to call off the wedding. Basilio returns to San Diego to look for his mother, Sisa. This search ends in the forest of the Ibarras, where Sisa dies shortly after recognizing her son. Minutes later, a weak and wounded Elias arrives and orders Basilio to cremate to the bodies, Elias and Sisa. Friar Damaso is assigned to another town. The following day, he is found dead. It is suspected that he suffered from a heart attack. Friar Salvi frequently delivers sermon at the convent of Santa Clara, where Maria Clara is staying.